Did you know the Golden Age didn't just produce the most iconic stars ever? One can also reminisce on the magnificent properties owned by them. Here are 8 mansions from the Golden Age of Hollywood. Number 8. Falcon Lair. Most notable for its association with screen legend Rudolph Valentino, the Falcon Lair was one of the most iconic mansions from Hollywood's Golden Age. Built in 1925, the estate exemplified the glamour and excess of the era. It blended Mediterranean-style architecture with luxurious detailing. Located in the hills of Benedict's Canyon in Beverly Hills, California, it was perched on a ridge with sweeping views of the surrounding area. It symbolized Valentino's immense success and status as one of Hollywood's first international superstars. Born Rodolfo Alfonso Raffaello Pietro Filberto Guglielmi di Valentina d'Antonella. In May 1895, Rudolph Valentino was an Italian-born actor and one of the first great male stars of silent films. He became known as the Latin lover and in time solidified his position as a cultural icon and a sex symbol during the 1920s. He embodied a new type of romantic hero in Hollywood's burgeoning film industry. Valentino was born in Castellaneta, Italy, to a middle-class family. After struggling to find work in Europe, he emigrated to the United States in 1913. He initially worked odd jobs in New York City, including as a gardener, dancer, and waiter, before moving to California to pursue acting. Valentino's breakthrough came in 1921 with the film The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. In this film, he captivated audiences with his charm and magnetic presence. Later that year, he cemented his status as a romantic idol with The Sheik, a film that became synonymous with his persona. His smoldering looks and expressive acting made him an international heartthrob and one of the highest-paid actors of the time. Other films like Blood and Sand, The Eagle, and The Son of the Sheik showcased Valentino's ability to portray passion, vulnerability, and strength, often within exotic or romanticized settings. Valentino's personal life was marked by controversy and speculation. His 2 marriages to actress Jean Acker and Natasha Rambova ended in divorce. There were also rumors about his sexuality that persisted throughout his career. This mysterious allure only added to his mystique. Valentino died suddenly at the age of 31 from complications following surgery for a perforated ulcer. His unexpected death triggered mass hysteria among fans. Over 100,000 people attended his New York City funeral, and there were reports of fans fainting and even attempting suicide out of grief. Valentino remains a symbol of Hollywood's golden age and the silent film era. His charisma and appeal helped shape the archetype of the leading man in film, and his influence can still be felt in popular culture today. Despite his short life and career, Valentino's legend endures not just as one of the first global movie stars, but also as the owner of the Grand Falcon Lair. The mansion was designed by architect Gordon Kaufman, the same architect who designed the Hoover Dam. Valentino purchased it for $175,000, a vast sum at the time. Interestingly, Valentino named it Falcon Lair after his upcoming film, The Hooded Falcon. The house had white stucco walls and red tiled roof and an expansive courtyard that echoed the style of Mediterranean villas. Its design reflected Valentino's fascination with European aesthetics and his personal sense of drama. The Falcon Lair became a symbol of Valentino's mystique and his tragic, untimely death at the age of 31 in 1926. Following his death, the mansion became an enduring legend tied to his memory, drawing fans and fueling stories of hauntings and paranormal activity. The estate went through various ownerships over the decades, including heiress Doris Duke, who owned the home for more than 50 years. Despite its historical significance, the Falcon Lair fell into disrepair over time. The aging structure and changes in ownership contributed to its neglect. In 2006, the mansion was demolished after its then-owner deemed it beyond repair. Only a few original elements of the property, such as some gates and landscape features, remain today. The destruction of the Falcon Lair is often lamented as a significant loss to Hollywood history. It represented not only the opulence of the silent film era, but also the fleeting nature of fame and fortune. The mansion's disappearance is a poignant reminder of how many architectural and cultural treasures of Hollywood's golden age have been lost to time and developmental pressures. Today, its memory survives through photographs, stories, and the enduring mystique of Valentino's legacy. Number 7. Pickfair. Just like Falcon Lair, Pickfair is one of Hollywood's most famous and iconic mansions that symbolize the glamour, success, and influence of Hollywood's golden age. Built in 1919, the estate was the private residence of legendary silent film stars Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. Did you notice the play on words? Pickfair got its name from the combination of its owners' names. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks were two of the most influential figures in early Hollywood. They were known for their groundbreaking contributions to cinema and their status as industry pioneers. Interestingly, both had already enjoyed remarkable individual careers before becoming the power couple who shaped the film industry's trajectory during the silent film era and beyond. Mary Pickford, for one, was often called America's sweetheart. Born Gladys Louise Smith in 1892, she began acting in Canada as a child before moving to the United States. She started her career in theater before transitioning to film in the early 1900s and was mostly working with D.W. Griffith at Biograph Studios. Pickford's golden curls, expressive face, and charisma endeared her to audiences. By the 1910s, she had become one of the first international movie stars. Pickford was one of the first actors to take control of her career. She negotiated groundbreaking contracts that gave her creative control and unprecedented earnings. In time, she was one of the wealthiest women in Hollywood. In 1919, she co-founded United Artists, UA for short, with Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin, and D.W. Griffith. UA allowed artists more creative freedom and revolutionized the way films were produced and distributed. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks married in 1920, becoming Hollywood's first superstar couple. It's hard to determine if they had any relationship prior to becoming co-founders of the UA. Born Douglas Elton Thomas Ullman in 1883, Fairbanks began as a stage actor before transitioning to film in the 1910s. His athleticism, charm, and energy made him a natural leading man. Fairbanks became known for his swashbuckling roles that showcased his physical prowess and adventurous spirit. His exuberant performances and dynamic screen presence made him one of the most popular male stars of the silent era. Fairbanks revolutionized the action-adventure genre with films like The Mark of Zorro, The Three Musketeers, Robin Hood, and The Thief of Baghdad. These films set new standards for stunts and production design. Fairbanks is remembered as one of cinema's first action heroes and as a visionary who expanded the artistic possibilities of filmmaking. Together, Fairbanks and Mary Pickford's union captivated the public, symbolizing romance and success in the burgeoning entertainment industry. Together, they hosted legendary gatherings at their Beverly Hills estate, Pickfair, cementing their status as Hollywood royalty. While they mostly worked separately, their joint efforts, such as their involvement in United Artists, had a profound impact on Hollywood's business model. Their activities emphasized the power of actors in shaping their careers. Both stars struggled with the transition to sound films. Pickford's youthful image did not adapt well to the new medium, and Fairbanks found it difficult to maintain his swashbuckling persona. Their marriage also ended in divorce in 1936, and both retired from acting soon after. Despite this, their legacies remained intact as pioneers and icons of Hollywood's golden age. Sad how it ended, but their union was good while it lasted. Often referred to as Hollywood's first power couple, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks used Pickfair not only as their home, but also as a center for the entertainment industry. They hosted lavish parties that were attended by the biggest stars and influential figures of the time. Interestingly, Pickfair began as a modest hunting lodge in Beverly Hills, California. After purchasing the property in 1919, Pickford and Fairbanks significantly expanded and transformed it into a grand 25-room mansion. Designed by architect Wallace Neff, the estate was built in a Tudor revival style with touches of old Hollywood elegance. It featured luxurious amenities such as a ballroom, library, pool, tennis courts, and expansive gardens. Pickfair became a symbol of Hollywood's burgeoning influence in the 1920s and 1930s. It was known as the White House of Hollywood because of the high-profile guests it entertained. From Charlie Chaplin to Albert Einstein, Amelia Earhart, George Bernard Shaw, and Winston Churchill, Pickfair welcomed them all. The estate was a hub for the arts and intellectual conversations, reflecting the cultural aspirations of Hollywood beyond film. So what happened to Pickfair? After the couple's divorce in 1936, Pickford retained the property and lived there until her death in 1979. Following Pickford's passing, the mansion was sold to Los Angeles Lakers owner Jerry Buss and later to actress Pia Zadora and her husband Meshulam Riklis in 1988. Zadora claimed the home was in poor condition, which led to its controversial demolition in the early 1990s. The original mansion was replaced with a modern-style estate. The demolition of Pickfair sparked widespread outrage among preservationists and film historians who viewed the estate as a piece of cinematic and cultural history. Critics accused Zadora of destroying a Hollywood landmark, while she defended the decision by citing structural issues and rumors of haunting. Although Pickfair no longer exists, its legacy endures in the history of Hollywood's golden age. Today, Pickfair remains a symbol of a bygone era of Hollywood royalty, and its story serves as a reminder of the need to preserve historical landmarks tied to the film industry's origins. Number 6. The Rococo Retreat. If we were talking about lost mansions, then the Rococo Retreat is worth mentioning. Though its history is often overshadowed by other famous estates like Pickfair and Falcon Lair, lore has it that the Rococo Retreat truly stood as a unique architectural gem that epitomized the opulence of the film industry's early years. Unfortunately, like many landmarks of its time, it has been lost to history. In fact, as far as loss goes, so little is known about this resort that it is often cited as a mythical mansion from Hollywood's golden age. Thankfully, not all is lost. We will give you every detail that we were able to find about this long-forgotten gem. If the rumors are to be believed, then this mansion symbolizes the excess and artistry of the era. The Rococo Retreat was built in the 1920s, during the height of Hollywood's rapid rise to cultural dominance. Its name was derived from its architectural style, an exuberant blend of Rococo revival and Hollywood glamour. The mansion was likely commissioned by a prominent figure in the entertainment industry. Some claim it was a producer. Others insist it was a studio executive eager to showcase his wealth and taste. The accounts do seem to differ. Moving on to the architectural design, the mansion was a masterpiece of ornate craftsmanship and grandeur. It reflected the true style of Rococo, which was one that focused on detail and extravagance. The estate boasted gilded ceilings, intricately carved moldings, crystal chandeliers, and frescoed walls. The grounds were equally lavish, featuring manicured gardens, fountains, and marble statues, as well as a pool surrounded by Roman-inspired columns. For that unique element, it had a grand ballroom, the kind that was inspired by European palaces. The ballroom served as a centerpiece for extravagant Hollywood parties. The Rococo Retreat also had its cultural significance. It was more than a home, it was a social hub for Hollywood's elite. It hosted star-studded parties that included icons of the Golden Age, from actors and directors to writers and musicians. The estate embodied the spirit of the era, blending artistic expression with the luxury that defined Hollywood's golden years. As with many estates of the era, the Rococo Retreat faced challenges as time passed. The first was changing tastes. By the mid-20th century, the ornate Rococo style fell out of favor and was replaced by more modern and minimalist aesthetics. There were economic factors as well. Maintaining such a grand estate became increasingly difficult, especially after the Great Depression and all the economic shifts that followed. Then came urban development. We imagine that the property was eventually demolished in the mid-20th century, likely to make way for suburban development or modern commercial projects. While often referenced as a symbol of Hollywood's golden age opulence, the Rococo Retreat lacks extensive historical documentation compared to estates like Pickfair or Falcon Lair. Its origin remains steeped in mystery, and much of its history has been pieced together from anecdotal accounts and Hollywood lore. But based on available information, it is believed that the mansion was commissioned in the 1920s by a wealthy Hollywood figure. The mansion's design is attributed to a prominent architect of the era, though no definitive records exist to confirm the creator. Likely candidates include architects such as Paul Revere Williams, who designed luxury homes for Hollywood elites, or Wallace Neff, who was known for blending European styles with California's landscape. The architect would have been tasked with bringing the ornate Rococo revival aesthetic to life, a style rarely seen in Hollywood mansions, but chosen to evoke European sophistication and artistry. The original owner remains speculative. Given its grandeur and elaborate design, it was likely built for a studio executive, silent film star, or financier deeply embedded in Hollywood's elite. Some historians suggest the mansion may have been commissioned by a European immigrant to the film industry who sought to bring continental flair to the Los Angeles hills. The eventual loss of the Roku Retreat mirrors the fate of many landmarks from Hollywood's golden age. Its destruction represents a cultural shift away from the extravagance of early Hollywood and highlights the fragility of architectural heritage. Though no longer standing, the Roku Retreat remains a symbol of the creativity and ambition that defined the era. Its memory survives in stories, photographs, and as a reminder of Hollywood's early grandeur. Number 5. The Buster Keaton Mansion. Also known as the Italian Villa, the Buster Keaton Mansion was one of the most extravagant homes of Hollywood's golden age. Built by the legendary silent film comedian Buster Keaton in the 1920s, the mansion symbolized the wealth and artistic ambition of the era. Although the house no longer stands, it remains an important part of Hollywood's architectural and cultural history. Intrigued? We have every detail needed to satisfy your curiosity. Let's begin with Buster Keaton himself, the man behind its glamour. Born Joseph Frank Keaton IV, Buster Keaton was an American actor, filmmaker, comedian, and stunt performer, widely regarded as one of the greatest talents in the history of cinema. He had this deadpan expression that earned him the moniker the Great Stone Face. With this unique ability, Keaton revolutionized silent film comedy with his extraordinary physicality, innovative stunts, and impeccable comic timing. Interestingly, Keaton was born into a vaudeville family. His parents, Joe and Myra Keaton, were traveling performers, and Buster joined their act as a toddler. He earned his nickname Buster from magician Harry Houdini, who, after seeing him fall downstairs unharmed, reportedly exclaimed, "That's a real Buster." From a young age, Keaton became a key part of his family's slapstick act, performing daring physical stunts that honed the skills he later brought to film. Keaton transitioned to film in 1917, working alongside the equally successful comedian Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. By the early 1920s, he established himself as a solo performer and filmmaker, creating some of the most iconic comedies in cinema history. From The General to Sherlock Jr., Steamboat Bill Jr., and The Navigator, Keaton's films stood out for their combination of physical comedy, breathtaking stunts, and meticulous attention to detail. He was a pioneer of visual storytelling, relying on action rather than dialogue to convey humor and emotion. Sadly, the advent of sound films and the loss of creative control after signing with MGM in 1928 marked a downturn in Keaton's career. Thankfully, Buster Keaton is celebrated as one of the most influential filmmakers and performers of all time. His daring stunts and inventive comedy have inspired generations of filmmakers, including directors like Charlie Chaplin, Jacques Tati, and Wes Anderson. Keaton's contributions to cinema have been recognized with numerous accolades, including an honorary Academy Award in 1959 for his lifetime achievements. Now, aside from the career highs, Keaton was also renowned as the owner of one of the most lavish mansions in that era. The Buster Keaton Mansion was constructed in 1926, notably at the height of Keaton's career. Keaton personally oversaw the construction and design of the estate, collaborating with architect Roland E. Coate. The home was modeled after a traditional Italian villa, blending Mediterranean revival and Italianate styles popular among Hollywood elites of the time. The construction cost was said to be around $300,000, a staggering sum in the 1920s, as you can imagine. If anything, it reflects Keaton's success and the lavish lifestyles of silent film stars. So what was so special about this one? The mansion, located in Beverly Hills, was one of the most opulent homes of its era. Its features included a sprawling estate that covered 10,000 square feet, with additional land for gardens and recreational spaces. The home boasted grand arched windows, wrought iron detailing, and luxurious furnishings. Keaton's meticulous attention to detail extended to custom-designed features that reflected his comedic sensibilities and artistic flair. The property included a swimming pool, tennis courts, and elaborate gardens. Keaton installed a miniature golf course and a reflecting pool, demonstrating his playful personality. The house was equipped with advanced technology for the time, including an underground passage that allowed discreet movement between rooms, which Keaton reportedly used as a comedic prop during parties. The home's playful design and Keaton's humor made it one of the most talked-about residences in the industry. To Keaton, it symbolized his transition from a vaudeville performer to one of the most respected figures in film. It embodied the optimism and artistic ambition of the silent film era. But as a lost mansion, you already know there was a problem somewhere. The Great Depression and Keaton's financial struggles forced him to sell the mansion in 1933. MGM's rigid studio system had stripped him of creative control, which made room for a decline in his career and income. After Keaton sold the home, it passed through multiple owners, including actors Cary Grant and James Mason. Eventually, the mansion was demolished in 1948 as Beverly Hills experienced a wave of redevelopment. The land was subdivided, and modern homes were built in its place. Do you consider the loss of the Buster Keaton Mansion a missed opportunity to preserve a piece of Hollywood history? We mean it represented the height of Keaton's creative and personal success and showcased the opulence and innovation of Hollywood's golden age. Today, that would have been something to see. Sadly, it is only remembered through photographs, architectural sketches, and the stories of its legendary parties. The demolition of estates like Keaton's highlights the tension between historic preservation and urban development in Los Angeles, where many architectural treasures have been sacrificed for modernization. Number 4. Garden of Allah. Before becoming one of Hollywood's most famous landmarks, the Garden of Allah was originally a private mansion. That is, until it was transformed into a luxury hotel and villa complex. Located on Sunset Boulevard, it was synonymous with the glamour, scandal, and creative energy of Hollywood's golden age. The mansion was constructed in 1913 by real estate developer William H. Hay as a private home. Silent film star Alla Nazimova purchased the property in 1918. The celebrated actress and producer named it the Garden of Allah, a playful nod to the title of a popular novel, and perhaps her own name too. The Russian-born was one of old Hollywood's most innovative and influential figures. As a closeted lesbian during a time of rigid social expectations, she managed to achieve a successful career in both silent films and on stage. Born in 1879 in the Russian Empire, which is now Ukraine, Nazimova trained in Moscow's theater circles before immigrating to the U.S. in 1905. Her early work not only showcased her powerful acting and emotional depth, but also helped her make a name for herself on Broadway. By the time she made it to Hollywood, she was one of the highest paid and most respected actresses of the silent film era. She was known for her expressive, bold performances and her avant-garde approach to film. Some of her most famous films include Camille in 1921 and Salome in 1923. Despite her success, her unique vision and experimental style faced resistance. Her choices in production and artistic direction were considered too unconventional and often dismissed as eccentric. Nazimova was a known member of the Sewing Circle, the term for a network of lesbian and bisexual actresses in Hollywood. In fact, history has it that she coined the covert term. Still, she had to keep her orientation a secret to maintain her career. Publicly, she was briefly married to actor Charles Bryant. This marriage was later revealed to be for appearances only. From actress Eva Le Gallienne to writer Mercedes de Acosta, Nazimova was rumored to be romantically involved with influential women of her time. Back then, very few women could own property like the Garden of Allah, but Nazimova was a force. By 1927, Nazimova converted the estate into a hotel. She added 25 villas around the original mansion to cater to Hollywood's elite. The Garden of Allah is said to have combined Mediterranean revival and Spanish colonial styles. It featured stucco walls, tiled roofs, and lush landscaping. The estate included a grand swimming pool that became a centerpiece for parties, as well as lavish gardens filled with palm trees, exotic plants, and fountains. There were also villas designed for privacy. Notably, this was a feature beloved by stars seeking discretion. The property was known for its bohemian charm and decadent ambiance, making it a haven for Hollywood's free-spirited artists and actors. The Garden of Allah was more than just a hotel. It was a cultural hotspot for the creative and influential figures of Hollywood's golden age. The complex attracted stars like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Humphrey Bogart, Greta Garbo, Errol Flynn, Dorothy Parker, and Marlene Dietrich. It was a place where writers, actors, and directors mingled freely, often in the midst of personal or professional crises. Known for its wild parties and illicit affairs, the Garden of Allah became a symbol of Hollywood's hedonistic side. Its reputation for secrecy made it a safe space for the era's closeted LGBTQ+ stars and other marginalized creatives. By the 1950s, the Garden of Allah's once exclusive appeal began to wane. The rise of modern hotels with contemporary amenities, along with the decline of the studio system, made the property less attractive to Hollywood elites. In 1959, the property was sold to developers and demolished to make way for a bank and office buildings. The loss of the Garden of Allah marked the end of an era for Hollywood's golden age. Although the Garden of Allah no longer exists, its memory endures as a symbol of the glamour, creativity, and excess of early Hollywood. The estate continues to be referenced in books, songs, and films, which has ultimately solidified its position as an enduring part of Hollywood lore. Number 3. The William O. Jenkins House. It goes without saying that the William O. Jenkins House was a remarkable symbol of wealth and influence during the early 20th century. Its connection to William Oscar Jenkins, the wealthy American businessman with ties to both Hollywood and Mexico, underscores its significance as a lavish private residence reflective of its era. Though not traditionally associated with Hollywood's core stars, the estate was emblematic of the era's grandiose architectural trends and cultural aspirations. Jenkins was an industrialist and entrepreneur who amassed significant wealth in Mexico, particularly through his involvement in manufacturing and agriculture. Jenkins was born in Shelbyville, Tennessee in 1878. He attended Vanderbilt University, but left before completing his degree to work in business. By 1901, Jenkins moved to Mexico to explore opportunities in a rapidly industrializing country. Jenkins began his career in Mexico by investing in the textile industry. He showed an exceptional ability to identify undervalued opportunities and turn them into profitable ventures. His wealth also grew significantly through his investments in sugar plantations and real estate. Then came the Puebla textile boom. Jenkins became heavily involved in the city of Puebla, where he acquired numerous textile factories and other properties. This move cemented his reputation as a dominant figure in the region's economy. Sounds like the most inspiring tale, but there is more to the story. You see, Jenkins' success was often accompanied by controversy. Let's begin with the kidnapping incident in 1919. That year, Jenkins was kidnapped and held for ransom during the Mexican Revolution. The incident subsequently raised suspicions that he might have orchestrated the kidnapping himself to avoid taxation or gain public sympathy. Several critics also accused Jenkins of employing ruthless tactics, including monopolistic practices, to consolidate his wealth. If the rumors are to be believed, then Jenkins has developed a number of aggressive business strategies. His immense wealth often alienated local communities, and he was viewed by some as an outsider exploiting Mexican resources. Now, Jenkins' business interest extended to the Mexican film industry. He played a significant role in financing cinemas across Mexico, helping to shape the country's entertainment landscape. His investments contributed to the rise of Mexican cinema during the golden age of Mexican filmmaking. While Jenkins primarily operated in Mexico, his wealth and influence likely connected him to Hollywood's elite during the 1920s and 1930s. He embodied the transnational business relationships that characterized the era. In his later years, Jenkins became a prominent philanthropist. He founded the Mary Street Jenkins Foundation in 1954, named after his late wife. The foundation supported education, healthcare, and cultural initiatives in Mexico and continues to operate today. Despite his philanthropy, Jenkins remains a divisive figure. Some view him as a visionary who contributed to Mexico's industrialization, while others criticize him for exploiting the country's resources and labor. Jenkins died in 1963, leaving behind a vast fortune and a mixed reputation. His influence on Mexican industry and philanthropy endures, but his life is often examined through the lens of both his achievements and the controversies surrounding his business practices. Now, one of those achievements was, of course, the William O. Jenkins House. Like we mentioned earlier, he played a key role in modernizing Mexican industries and was considered one of the wealthiest Americans in Mexico during his lifetime. While Jenkins spent much of his life in Mexico, the mansion attributed to him in Hollywood's context reflects his influence in transnational business and entertainment circles. Some accounts suggest the home may have been used as a retreat or a statement of his wealth. The house was likely constructed in the 1920s or 1930s, in line with the opulent styles of the era, such as Mediterranean Revival or Spanish Colonial Revival, popular among Hollywood's elite. The estate was considered a sprawling example of luxury, similar to other grand homes of that period. The house featured high ceilings, elaborate woodwork, and custom-designed furniture, possibly imported from Europe or Mexico, reflecting Jenkins' cross-cultural lifestyle. Expansive gardens, fountains, and recreational areas, such as a tennis court or swimming pool, likely adorned the property and was typical for the mansions of that time. Jenkins' wealth and connection to Mexico might have influenced the design, incorporating Mexican motifs or decorative elements and blending them with Hollywood's penchant for European-inspired architecture. While Jenkins was not a Hollywood actor or filmmaker, his wealth and status likely brought him into contact with the entertainment industry. The estate would have been a site for high-profile gatherings or served as a meeting place for influential figures in both business and film. Its construction during Hollywood's golden age placed it within the cultural landscape of larger-than-life mansions that symbolized success and extravagance. Over time, the William O. Jenkins house likely changed ownership, as was common with many estates of the era. The challenges of maintaining such properties, along with shifts in architectural taste and urban development, led to its decline. The house was eventually demolished, likely in the mid-20th century, as Beverly Hills and surrounding areas underwent modernization. The site may have been redeveloped into smaller properties or commercial spaces. There is no doubt that Jenkins' estate represents the wealth and global connections of Hollywood's elite during its formative years, even if Jenkins himself was more of a peripheral figure in the industry. If anything, this property highlights the interplay between Hollywood's golden age and influential figures from other industries by showcasing the broader reach of its cultural and social networks. Like many grand estates of the time, the house's demolition underscores the transient nature of architectural landmarks tied to specific eras of prosperity and cultural prominence. Though the William O. Jenkins house is not as well documented as other mansions, its existence adds depth to the narrative of opulence and ambition that defined Hollywood's golden age. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates from us. Number 2. The Marion Davies Beach House. The Marion Davies Beach House was officially known as the Ocean House. No matter what name you called it, one thing was certain: it was one of the most extravagant estates of Hollywood's golden age. Situated on the beach in Santa Monica, California, this sprawling mansion was commissioned by media magnate William Randolph Hearst as a gift for his longtime partner, actress Marion Davies. Known for its opulence, lavish parties, and celebrity guests, the estate became an iconic symbol of the wealth and glamour of the 1920s and 1930s. Though much of the original estate has been lost, its legacy remains significant in the history of Hollywood. Construction began in 1926 and was designed by the renowned architect Julia Morgan. She also worked at Hearst Castle in San Simeon. The estate reportedly cost over $7 million to build, and this is the equivalent of over $100 million today. As you can imagine, it was one of the most expensive homes of its time. Situated along the Pacific coast in Santa Monica, the property occupied 5 acres of beachfront land. The Marion Davies Beach House was designed to be a luxurious retreat for Hollywood's elite and a showcase of Hearst's immense wealth. The mansion was a 110-room structure with 37 fireplaces, gilded ceilings, and imported European furnishings. Several smaller guest houses dotted the estate to ensure privacy for visitors. The estate featured a Venetian-inspired swimming pool, tennis courts, and private access to the beach. There was a grand ballroom with a gold leaf ceiling, and crystal chandeliers served as the centerpiece for elaborate parties. Expansive landscaped gardens surrounded the property, truly blending Mediterranean and tropical styles. The estate became one of the most exclusive venues in Southern California. Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst hosted the most extravagant parties, which were attended by Hollywood's biggest stars, politicians, and international royalty. Guests included Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, Clark Gable, and Winston Churchill. The mansion symbolized the height of Hollywood's golden age extravagance, as it reflected the wealth disparity and opulence of the Roaring Twenties. As with Hearst Castle, the estate was often the subject of rumors, including tales of wild parties, secret liaisons, and discreet dealings between Hollywood elites and politicians. By the late 1930s, Hearst faced significant financial difficulties, leading to the downsizing of his assets. Though the estate remained in Marion Davies' name, its upkeep became challenging. After Davies sold the property in the 1940s, it went through several ownership changes and fell into disrepair. Much of the estate was demolished in the early 1950s, and the land was eventually developed into a public beach and parking lot. Although the original Marion Davies Beach House no longer stands, its cultural and historical significance persist. A guest house and the original pool were preserved and later restored, as part of the Annenberg Community Beach House, which opened in 2009. The estate is remembered as one of the most extravagant homes of Hollywood's golden age, a physical manifestation of Hearst's ambition and Davies' charm. The house truly encapsulates the decadence of the 1920s and 1930s, as well as the intersection of Hollywood, media power, and politics during that time. The Marion Davies Beach House was more than just a mansion with big parties. It was a cultural landmark that embodied the glamour and extravagance of Hollywood's early years. Its loss highlights the impermanence of even the most grandiose creations. Thankfully, the stories and memories tied to the estate ensure its place in the lore of Hollywood's golden age. Today, the Annenberg Community Beach House keeps a small piece of that history alive for the public. Number 1. The Ambassador Hotel, LA. Technically, this was not a mansion, but the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles was one of the most iconic landmarks of Hollywood's golden age. Its opulence, historical significance, and role as a social hub for celebrities, politicians, and world figures made it a symbol of glamour and grandeur. The hotel's eventual decline and demolition in 2005 marked the loss of an important piece of Hollywood history. But we get ahead of ourselves. This story begins on the 1st of January, 1921, when the building was constructed. Designed by the renowned architect Myron Hunt, the hotel showcased Mediterranean Revival and Art Deco styles, the kind that truly reflected the luxury and elegance of the Roaring Twenties. Situated on Wilshire Boulevard, the Ambassador Hotel was at the heart of Los Angeles' burgeoning social and cultural scene. The hotel had 500 luxurious guest rooms and suites, all designed to cater to Hollywood's elite and affluent travelers. The hotel's nightclub, the Coconut Grove, became legendary for its lush decor. The club was inspired by Moroccan themes and its frequent hosting of Hollywood stars, performances, and award ceremonies. Lavish ballrooms and beautifully landscaped gardens added to the hotel's charm, making it a popular venue for high-profile events. The Ambassador Hotel hosted countless stars, including Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, Charlie Chaplin, and Judy Garland. It was a favored spot for Hollywood's elite during the 1920s and 1930s. The hotel was a prime location for movie premieres, industry parties, and the first Academy Award ceremonies in the late 1920s and early 1930s. This is where things get interesting. This hotel played a significant role in American history. It was the site of numerous political gatherings and international summits. The hotel is perhaps most infamous as the location of Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination on June 5, 1968. By the 1970s, the Ambassador Hotel struggled to compete with newer, modern hotels. To make things worse, the surrounding area also experienced economic decline, reducing its appeal. The hotel closed in 1989, leaving its future uncertain for years. Despite efforts to preserve the historic site, the Ambassador Hotel was demolished in 2005 to make way for a school campus now known as the Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools. The Ambassador Hotel's role in Hollywood's golden age, coupled with its political and cultural significance, makes it an enduring symbol of a bygone era. The hotel's memory lives on in films, books, and documentaries that highlight its glamorous and tragic history. Even the Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools have since incorporated design elements and tributes to the hotel in an attempt to preserve some of its history. The Ambassador Hotel represents a fascinating intersection of Hollywood's glamour and America's broader cultural history. Its demolition reflects the changes of balancing preservation with urban development, but its legacy as a cornerstone of Los Angeles' golden age endures. What do you think about these magnificent structures that have all been lost to time? Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the next video on screen.